Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon. This is John Suntress. It's December and it's holiday season. Consider a lot of the guests on Word Balloon as gift ideas because I really think a lot of the creators have new product, no matter what it is, whether it's a film or a TV show or obviously comic book, a graphic novel, whatever. And, of course, our regular sponsor, Aftershock, should be considered that way as well. If you have questions or comments about the show, reach me via email. Best way to contact me, john@wordballoon.com. Also, follow me on Twitter under John Wordballoon and on Facebook on my name, John Suntress, and the Word Balloon Network. Thank you for listening to the show. Thank you for listening through the commercials. Yes, sometimes they repeat, but it is the holiday season, and I have no control over the repeaters. But that's how I get paid from them, is by you listening all the way through those commercials and into the show. We're coming back after one more commercial, and then we'll start things off. But as always, thanks very much for listening. Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Man, a friend of mine woke me up to a link in Variety saying that Marvel Television is going to close down. Hard to believe, man. Joe Otterson wrote the article. Let me quote some of the article to you. Variety has learned that Marvel Television will no longer be developing any new series beyond the shows that are currently in production. According to an individual with knowledge of the situation, Marvel will eliminate a number of positions in the near future as a result of the cessation of development of the division. Karim Zarek, Senior Vice President of Current Programming and Production, and members of his team will now join the Marvel Studios group. Zarek will lead the current projects in production. Marvel TV head Jeph Loeb will remain with the division during the transition. The move to close up shop on Marvel Television was not altogether unexpected, as Variety reported in September that there was a growing perception in the industry that Loeb's division was on its way out, given that Marvel Movies boss Kevin Feige was set to produce a number of big-budget live-action television shows for Disney Plus, featuring characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Shortly thereafter, it was announced Feige had been promoted to Chief Creative Officer of Marvel and has taken over the Disney-owned company storytelling across mediums, including publishing, film, television, and animation. It was widely believed at the time that Loeb would exit the company within the next few months. The only Marvel Television live-action show currently in the works is Hellstrom, Damian Hellstrom, of course, at Hulu. Hulu had previously ordered a live-action Ghost Rider series, but that project was scrapped in September. Let's see. It also says that the 4 animated shows at Hulu, Howard the Duck, Hitmonkey, Tigra and Dazzler, and MODOK, are expected to debut separately before crossing over with the Offenders event series. However, news broke last week that the showrunner and writing staff of Tigra and Dazzler had departed the show over creative differences. The search for a new showrunner is ongoing. Fellow Marvel Hulu series The Runaways will end with its upcoming 3rd season. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will end after 7 seasons on ABC this spring. All of Marvel's television, other live-action shows have been canceled in the past year. So, that means that Jeph Loeb is wrapping up his career at Marvel Television. And we've had so many great conversations with Jeph over the years about Marvel Television, from its first announcement through the development of a lot of animated and TV series, and certainly the Netflix series as well. And it's, I think, interesting to look back and remember how many television shows Jeph has been involved with as a co-executive producer and, a hands-on exec that really brought the Marvel Television universe to life. Listen, there were hits and misses, just like any television executive or production company, but I think their batting average was well over 500, and man, I'll tell you, in baseball terms, that ain't bad, and in television terms, that's pretty goddamn good. Jeph won a Peabody Award, he won a couple Emmys, and I think did a hell of a job, and I'm looking forward to whatever is next for Jeph in his television career, or if he has more time to do comics, whatever he chooses to do. But honestly, it always sucks when it's the end of something, and I feel like I'm doing a post-mortem here. But I really want to celebrate the accomplishments of Jeph Loeb and Marvel Television. Like I said, man, a lot of people are, and including myself, we're all excited about what Kevin Feige might bring to the television side of Marvel, as much as what he's doing in the films, and even in Marvel Comics, obviously. I think it's nothing but optimistic. That said, you can't deny the impact that the Netflix shows had when they got started. We were all very excited. And again, lots of hits, a couple misses, but I think on average, above average. I think they did well. And the animated shows have just been amazing at Marvel on Disney XD and the like. And everything that Hulu did and all the different shows that Freeform had, I think, again, I think there were a lot of accomplishments here that Marvel Television can be very proud of. So it's fun to look back, and I think in the next few Word Balloon presentations, we'll be looking at some of those great conversations with Jeph and some of the initial thoughts on a lot of the Netflix series, the animated series, and more. So today, I'm going to present two conversations with Jeph. The first one after the initial announcement of Marvel Television and what to expect from Marvel as we were looking forward. And then the second one talks a lot about Ultimate Spider-Man and Avengers Mightiest Heroes and the impact that the Avengers movie had on Marvel animation. I think you're going to enjoy these conversations with Jeph Loeb on today's Word Balloon. All brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners via Patreon. Thank you, League, for your support. December, I appreciate it every month. And listen, if you want to subscribe to Word Balloon, it's free. It'll always be free. But if you want to help out the cause as I build out Word Balloon and try to make it even bigger than before, it's been a great year, man. And I got a lot of thanks to give to the League of Word Balloon listeners to give me the opportunity to help build out Word Balloon and make some of the strides and advancements that I've made with the podcast and beyond. It's going to be a great 2020, and it's a lot due to the support of the Word Balloon listeners via Patreon. Patreon.com/Word Balloon. That's where you go to get involved and subscribe to Word Balloon. But thank you greatly for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics. Having a great December and beyond. It's been an amazing year of reading dangerously, as Aftershock puts it. And they make it easy, man. They've got great creators. Garth Ennis, Marguerite Bennett, Tim Seeley, Cullen Bunn, Phil Hester, Matthew Klickstein, Adam Glass. Great writers, incredible artists. Juan Doe. And the like, as a writer and an artist, frankly. Unbelievable books, great genre-bending ideas that deserve your attention. And really, go to their website because, again, it's Christmas season. What a great idea to introduce an Aftershock book to a friend who's already into comics, but, might be a Marvel and DC head and isn't really thinking about the non-masked stories that they can get at places like Aftershock Comics. Hey, if they like horror, if they like science fiction, if they like action and adventure, from steampunk to traditional action and adventure, you will find a book for you at Aftershock Comics. Go to their website. You'll find full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond books on how to order these books through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. All right, let's get into it, man. This was really exciting news when I heard that Jeph, who's been a longtime buddy of Word Balloons, got the job heading up Marvel Television. I used to call him the vice president of Marvel TV, but he's like, I am in charge. So I'm like, okay, I guess you're the president of Marvel Television. But here's that first conversation back in 2010 when the announcement was made. A Loeb report focusing on Marvel Television, the beginnings of Marvel Television, on Word Balloon.
All right, off the bat, congratulations. This is fantastic.
Thank you very much.
When did you officially get the job? Because obviously, as we're recording, the announcement came on Monday, but when were you in place and up and running?
I'm okay with saying it was Monday.
Okay. All right.
It's very different, as I've learned rapidly. The corporate world is very driven by when it's done and it's announced and you get your business card, you got the job.
Okay.
There's not a whole lot of, I'm doing Red Hulk through 2013. I'll let you know how that turns out, guys. It's very different than being a freelancer.
Okay. So what, are you going to be flying back and forth then from New York and L.A.?
I will be flying back and forth from New York and L.A. I currently have an office down at Manhattan Beach, which is where the Marvel offices are down there, where the feature division is,
okay,
and the animation division is. And then animation is primarily done through Marvel Animation is primarily done through Film Roman, which is located up in Burbank. So if you know anything about Los Angeles, I like to say to people, our offices are airport accessible. and not freeway accessible.
Understood.
Because I live, in the isosceles triangle theory. I live at the pointy part of the triangle.
Okay.
And so it's either way, it's a good long drive.
Woof. All right. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. But and Phil Roman, for people who don't know, some of the shows that they've had in the past have included things like King of the Hill, and you can probably continue and tell better examples than that than me.
Some Simpsons, obviously.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
But more importantly, they've been the home base for Marvel Animation, and for those of you who've watched Superhero Squad, which is on Cartoon Network, this fall will be the premiere of Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which is pretty cool.
That's cool. And are the contracts of things that we've seen recently, like the Wolverine and the X-Men and the Iron Man Amazing Adventures that was on Nickelodeon, are those shows done?
I can't talk specifically about that stuff. Some of that stuff will be announced when we're down in San Diego.
Okay.
And some of that stuff will get rolled out as it goes.
Okay.
And some of that, again, it's too soon to tell because I've been on the job for about 48 hours.
Understood. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I am looking forward, and I know, listen, everybody's busy in San Diego, but I hope we will have a quick second to just get a catch up and see what's going on, and I'll do my best to be at the panel as well. So
there'll actually be, I have to remember now, there is a Marvel animation panel which will incorporate the Avengers and other announcements that we have. There will be a Marvel Superhero Squad panel, which sounds like amazing, great fun.
Cool.
With what they have planned. And then the night, I wish I had my schedule in front of me, and right now the guys back on the West Coast are screaming, "Why don't you have your schedule in front of you?" There will be a very special anime panel that's actually at night where we'll be showing some of the anime stuff.
Oh, fantastic. Great, man. All right. And, I hope you get me on the right side of the velvet rope for some of this stuff. I'm going to, call in favors now.
Whatever you need, pal.
Attaboy. There you go. No, and also, I don't know, you're going to disappear on me now like John's, and it's okay because we want you guys making the donuts. I mean, it's nice that you guys talk, but more importantly, we want to see the quality product out there, and it's great to see, much like Jeph, doing things at DC. It's good to see that you're going to be in a good position to bring the Marvel voice even more so into the current and future projects.
I can tell you that there was a point at the Treehouse where we both talked about what it is that we were going to be doing in the future that made us both giggle.
I was going to say, are you both squealing like little girls, or what?
It is kind of incredible given our career paths and given how we both have been at Marvel and DC, and he completely blew up at DC, and I've been having fun over here. That almost within the same week, the conversations began to see whether or not we would consider going on in a more executive world. My thing took a lot longer because there were a lot more complicated issues that were involved, not the least of which was while Jeph stepped into a position that didn't exist, I stepped into a division that didn't exist. And so the concept of there being Marvel Television was very tied into our relationship with Disney and where Marvel wanted to be. And so it was a little more complicated than Jeff's side of the deal. Okay.
And obviously there's, things like Disney XD, and certainly when the Marvel Disney announcement was made, I think everyone kind of pointed to Disney XD as a destination for new ideas. You obviously, and I've seen this in both the press release and your interviews up to this point, your written interviews, that it sounds like, ABC Family is in play. You even mentioned ESPN, so I imagine a Kickers Incorporated can't be too far away.
Of course. And thank you for bringing that up. Put that on my list of things to do. Look, we're in an extraordinary situation, and that is, Disney has a host of networks. We have an incredible library of characters and an extremely loyal fan base, which would like to see those characters brought to life. And there are going to be really three distinct parts of my job within Marvel Television. The first is looking at doing more of the direct-to-DVD long forms like Planet Hulk. That's just in the discussion phase. There's nothing really to figure out there yet.
Okay.
The second is the division that is up and is active and is doing incredibly well, and really my job is to just help that division grow and to live up to a legacy of animation that we've now become part of. Once you become part of the Disney family, we've got to have the best animated Marvel television shows that we can make.
You bet.
And so, that's looking at each and every project and making sure that we've got the best people possible working on those things and really getting them up and kicking. As I said, I came on. There were a number of co-productions like Marvel Anime, which had already been announced. Superhero Squad is already on and is currently in production in its next season. And The Avengers was in production when I came in, and so we're in season 2 on that.
Great.
Even though it hasn't, it'll start this fall. And that's on Disney XD.
Okay.
The announcement of Ultimate Spider-Man is something that we're at the very beginning stages of, and the people that we've gotten involved with, some of which we'll be announcing when we're down in San Diego, it's extremely exciting, and it's going to be a great show. It's going to be a lot of fun, and not what anyone expects, and that's as much as I can say.
Okay.
And then there's other animated series that we're talking about with Disney, and I can't talk about that stuff yet. One of the things that people will find is not unlike the feature division, where the feature division only talks about the things that are actually going into production. That's the way Marvel Television will be run. You'll hear a lot of rumors, you hear a lot of things that sound like they're being developed, meetings that we're taking or anything else like that. Until we actually confirm that anything's going on, nothing's going on. And the last, and for me, the most challenging and the most adventuresome is the branching out now into live television. And that's obviously not an area that Marvel's been in. They've had limited success. They've certainly had great success, at least in my opinion, with the Bill Bixby Incredible Hulk show.
You bet.
And that would certainly be, I got asked what would be the high point that I could point to. There's not a lot to point to, so it's a little bit like asking after the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie was made, what would be the highlight of the Marvel films that were made. So I was at least glad to be able to say the Incredible Hulk series is pretty great.
Yep.
So we're going to be looking at shows with ABC Family and with ABC Network, using ABC's ABC Studios and ABC Family Studios as our production partner, and we'll be developing a very narrow corridor of programming. Again, borrowing from the model that was set up by the feature division where they started out very slowly, Iron Man and then Iron Man 2 and then Thor and Cap will come out in the same year. That's a big leap to do 2 movies in 1 year.
Sure.
And then we're also, being very realistic in terms of what we can get on the air. I mean, that's really what we want to talk about.
Understood, and that is that environment. In fact, I recorded with Alan Heinberg on Monday and couldn't help but talk about, the ever-changing environment of television. You certainly experienced yourself with the highs of Smallville, the highs and lows of Heroes, and the, just atmosphere of genre television being given a chance on basic cable versus network television. And, it certainly from, I think, a fan, a genre fan and a creator standpoint, I think basic cable seems to have the advantage of you're probably at least going to get an 8 or 13-week commitment to an idea versus the crapshoot of television where it could be an episode. I remember that Glenn Fry show that was canceled while the pilot was being aired. Mm-hmm. So, and I know you know that story too. So, yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know how much you can speak to that, obviously.
I think our responsibility is to make the best shows that we can. Network television, like any kind of television, is a challenge. I think the best way of approaching it is to go after the best showrunners. I do believe that television is primarily a writer's medium. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the genre shows, there was a singular vision that was driving those shows' success. So, Damon Lindelof on Lost, Al Goff and Miles Miller on Smallville. No better example than Joss Whedon on Buffy and Angel.
You bet.
When you have someone who really understands what the show is and where the show is going, you see them have long-term success in genre television. And when you don't, you see them not have that success. That's where we're going to be driving home all of our energies. And the good news is that's what ABC and ABC Family wants. We're really lucky that ABC has had the success that it had on Lost, to be able to look at that kind of genre show and say, okay, we get it. We really do understand how creator and showrunner driven these things need to be. Mm-hmm. Ron Moore on Battlestar Galactica.
You bet. And really, I'd say in basic cable standpoints, ABC Family has been very genre friendly. Mm-hmm. And I think that's terrific. I mean, from The Middleman and Kyle XY and some of the things that they've kind of tried to do. And I forget right now the one with the Asian girl that was on one of the Disney shows and then got her little chance to, and maybe it was just a pilot. I don't even know. It's these tweener shows.
Was that Samurai Girl?
I believe it was Samurai Girl. Thank you. Yeah. But go ahead.
No, they're terrific. I mean, and we are really at the earliest stages of looking through the catalog, looking through the characters, looking through the best stories, looking through the best creators, and trying to make that as pairings to see where we're going. So again, anything that anyone has heard or rumored is just exactly that.
Where is your, I imagine you're still with the network sharing that responsibility of, okay, we're going with concept X and we're going with showrunner Y. I mean, are you the guy that says, okay, and just for scenario's sake, we want a Shang-Chi show and we're going to let Jesse Alexander run the show. And here, what do you think?
You should be so lucky.
Taking care of my friends. Go ahead.
It isn't. It's a situation where we work together.
Okay.
If it comes from us, great. If it comes from them, great. It's what's the magic person formula? How do we do this all together? what we really bring to the table, in addition to the IP, is the creative input that you see Marvel having in the feature films side. Just making sure that the franchise is being handled in the way that our fan base would like it.
Mm-hmm.
We all feel like would be the best for worldwide marketplace.
Say that again, worldwide
marketplace.
Thank you. Okay. No, and I get that. Dude, this is great, and it's so funny. I can think of, and I'm sure your Rolodex is filled with the same names of past Word Balloon guests and past Empath Treehouse people that have wandered through that I think would make wonderful showrunners. And
again, without getting into anybody specific, one of the reasons why this made sense from Marvel's point of view, at least as I've been told, is that when you look at the murderer's row of people that worked on Buffy, Angel, Smallville, Lost, Heroes, Battlestar, those are the guys and the women that have driven the genre for the last 10 years.
Excellent.
And those are the people that ABC and ABC Family rightfully are interested in.
Fantastic.
We're really looking to put the best people that we can that have cred not only in television, but also within that fan base. It is important to us. We need to keep looking back on the success of the features. There's no slouches in there. I mean, Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. and Kenneth Branagh and Joe Johnston and stuff still to be announced is to come. They really look towards what is the best thing to bring those properties to life. And that's our same responsibility.
Very cool, man. I like I said, I know we're at the beginning of the process, so there's not much detail that you can give. But, I mean, right now I would say everything you're saying. I'm sure everyone's just nodding and saying, okay, sounds cool. And, how, let me ask you this, and again, without going into specifics, because Avengers, as you say, is already in production, and you guys are already looking to season 2. From the start, and especially in animation, and if you could compare the two, live action and animation, how long, what does it take, from a ballpark standpoint, for an animation idea once it's announced to get it off the ground? And I would say the same thing for live action. Once you've committed to an intellectual property and said, okay, let's make an animation show about this, or let's make a live action show.
It depends.
That.
It depends on how far along you are, who you've got for your team. But, anywhere from, I'm sort of happiest at around 18 months.
Okay.
I'd be just as happy with saying 2 years. But again, it sometimes is a long way from concept to day one of production, and then from that point on, it may be a much shorter term or it may be a much longer term. It just depends on how much time and money and how many weeks you can have per episode in order to make the best animation you can.
And the same goes for live action, I would assume, or?
Live action is actually much more driven by schedule. Generally what happens is right now they're developing shows that would be on the air in the fall of 2011.
There you go. Okay.
So,
15
we
months.
would know more, after the new year.
Okay. Very exciting, man. All right. Well, and I know your time is precious, so I'm looking at the clock, and I wanted to spend a little time on the comics. And also, let's first of all, the general question. You've got, Ultimate X and New Avengers, New Ultimates, and of course Hulk, all happening right now. How does this affect your comic book writing?
That will all be made clear down in San Diego.
Okay.
what I can tell you is I still will be writing comics. That much I can tell you. It was actually very important to me, as it was to Jeph. He made his deal. That we still got to do this thing that we love so much.
Okay. Well, that's cool, and I think that's important to keep your hand in both sides, and will only inform the other side, and kind of keep the lines of communication open. I mean, and obviously,
it's one of the things that's super important to everyone here is that the television division and the publishing division and the feature division all do talk regularly, meet regularly. We know what each other are doing, so that none of us ever have a situation where we don't. And then, again, that's one of the reasons why it's often hilarious to see something that's rumored online, and we just don't talk about it. That's all.
Before we get to your books that are currently out, because I did want to spend a moment on those, one other television question. The Black Panther has debuted on iTunes. Where is that as far as any other portals beyond iTunes in where it might be shown?
Come to San Diego.
Okay, there you go, and that's fine.
Next up, another conversation with Jeph, this one from 2012. We talk about the 1 hour block on Disney XD of Ultimate Spider-Man and Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. We talk about the obvious positive impact the Avengers film has had on the TV side of Marvel's live-action shows in development, including, boy, this never happened, the Hulk, and also addressing the rumor that the Avengers current cartoon might be canceled after this season. Well, it was, and they moved on to a different Avengers cartoon afterwards. I know Earth's Mightiest Heroes, though, was one of their favorite versions. I believe it's on Disney+. Again, I think that here's a kind of combination of what I've been doing, talking about great conversations I've had about animated shows in the last few years, along with, kind of tracking Jeph as the head of Marvel Television. So check it out. This is part 2 of our conversation with Jeph Loeb, talking Marvel Television on Word Balloon.
Certainly, the success of the Avengers movie has impacted the present and future of Marvel Television. We also talk about the hour-long block of Ultimate Spider-Man and Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, that's happening on Disney XD, how that's been going in the ratings, and future projects in development for Marvel Television.
Welcome back, Jeph Loeb. Far too long, sir, and I know you're a busy suit now, as opposed to one of us working for a living, grunts and everything.
Oh, I hardly deny that, but I don't even know what that means, to hardly deny. I know, I actually deny. No, I love being on Word Balloon. I still listen to your show. I like now that they're a 3-pack. So that I get it's kind of great. I get like Marty Pasco from the Silver Age. I get Nick Spencer from the Future Age, and then I get some guy that like sells comics on the street corner in New Jersey. Has an opinion about something.
Do you like the long format? I've been getting some people don't like it. They're like, hey, if I want one guest, one show, and I'm like, well, too bad. It's my show, man.
Well, I'm glad that in your young age you've become even more cooperative with your audience. But I guess now that you're like a big time radio program, you don't have to worry about anything like ratings. You just take them on. All the time.
Nice.
No, anything that drives traffic, I think, is exciting.
There you go.
And you have a great show, and I like your guests.
God bless you. You're a good man, and honestly, I do it for the people that are either stuck in a warehouse for 8 hours a day and they need something to listen to, or somebody that has a long commute and stuff like that. So this is what we try to achieve. Very nice.
I'm here for people at the gym.
Well, congrats on I think the initial success of Marvel TV. I'm sure you guys have already gotten numbers. What you don't have to go into specifics, but what is the word on Ultimate Spider-Man as far as ratings and stuff?
Everyone's very happy. There'll be shortly a big announcement. I'm not exactly sure whether or not it'll be now or with San Diego being right around the corner, sort of everything gets embargoed. So.
Okay.
Everyone is very happy. Everyone's happy on the production side, and everyone's very happy on at the network side. So all those things are good.
Excellent. And the block itself is doing, well as far as
the block is doing surprisingly well given how young we are, and I mean that young in terms of we've only been on, I think today was our 8th show, and so for us to come into a brand new network and really a brand new brand and launch a block, it's enormously challenging. But I think the combination of a really superb Disney XD marketing campaign matched with how involved Marvel is, sort of at every level. It's been really great. And then, we can't deny that the impact of the movie has on everything. It really has taken us from an extraordinarily successful success story to something it's now a cultural phenomenon. And in no small way by the fact that the movie is called Marvel's The Avengers, so that the red block is now sort of inexorably tied to the success of the film. One of the things that's very interesting is that at least once you get into the world that I am now faced with, things like you read articles about it, but when you're actually in it, the concept of branding and the importance of it and what it means is really extraordinary. I mean, when you look at a company like Disney, when you say Disney to the average guy on the street, they know what that means. It's family fare. It's something that everyone can enjoy. And to our fan base, Marvel means epic storytelling with a very human touch. But getting that out beyond that, that's really was sort of the next level, the next challenge, the place that you really want to get to. And the movie has, thrust a spotlight on us that's extraordinary. And I think that speaks to the power of the film. So it's been a very exciting last few weeks. If we'd had this conversation a month ago, it would be a very different conversation.
Interesting. Well, and to that, has it been enough time that you could possibly see a spike in ratings for the Avengers cartoon based on the fact that the movie is out? Obviously, it helped create
I think we've seen a spike everywhere. I think we see it in publishing. I think we see it in our television shows, and then obviously, it's driving traffic in the movie theaters like they're giving away free popcorn. It's pretty extraordinary.
But you guys can see it on TV? I mean, is there a noticeable bump up? Very cool. Interesting. Now, okay.
Now, I can't. No, look, it could. Again, it's all about timing. So,
sure.
Well, we introduced the show, we introduced the block, and it was on for about a month. So you don't know. You don't know whether or not it's that the movie hit right around the time when people who had now seen enough of the television show that they decided that this was now something they really enjoyed, or whether or not they mixed together. It's just one of those things where, to quote Hannibal, we do love it when a plan comes together. And I know the historians out there were going, which Hannibal was that?
The great George Papard Hannibal, damn straight. Well, I guess Liam Neeson too, of course. Let me ask. I wanted people to ask questions, and I was surprised at some of the initial questions because I hadn't read this, but I will ask you to confirm or deny. I'm trying to get to William Meyer's question. Where are you, William? I guess they're hearing rumors. Here, Nicholas Berry asked, any comments about the rumors regarding the cancellation of the Avengers cartoon
we don't
after this season?
We don't comment on rumors. I can tell you that there's an awful lot of misinformation out there, and people should just take it for what it's worth.
Okay. All right.
That's it's the best thing that I can say.
Okay. I do know that the average cartoon does only go like 2 seasons, and something remarkable, happens to, I think, get a third season. I could be wrong, but it always seems like it's made in like 39 episode clusters at best, or 26 episode rather clusters at best.
It is unusual in that doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but
yeah,
it
sure.
is unusual that shows go beyond 52.
Okay.
Simply because at a certain point, you have enough that you're able to strip it, and what that means is that you're able to put it on daily. And then you sort of look at it and say, and again, I'm not saying any of this is happening. We're just talking about animation in general.
The nature of animated series, sure.
Exactly. Is that it does tend to work that way, because it's you then have an opportunity to reinvent it, to create something new. It's so odd to me that folks look at animation, and obviously there are exceptions. There are things like, starting with the Flintstones and then going to the Simpsons and going to Family Guy, where you're getting 9, 10, 20 years out of a show. And SpongeBob is another one, which has pretty much kept to the formula that it has. Ben 10, an extremely successful show, has continually reinvented itself.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But when action-adventure is something that is very challenging to move out beyond a second season, largely because you start to take a look at where you want the show to go, and also, what your team is, and the look, and the ability to be able to the way technology is growing at such tremendous advances that, you really do look at it and say, okay, what's the best thing for us to do? How do we get the best looking show? How do we get the most exciting show? And there'll always be a fan base which wants what it has to stay and continue. There's been how many incarnations of Spider-Man shows through the years, and each one of those shows has a fan base. There's people that that love Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and can't understand why that's still not on the air. And so, to those people, I think that's fantastic. Nobody's wrong about what their favorite show is. It's just, you have to keep in mind the nature of the audience and how long people stay and watch things, particularly things that are not in prime time. It's a challenge to keep an audience fresh and on there. The part that's very interesting to me is that you see this sort of thing in publishing all the time. You see, people leave books, and then a new team comes in, and the show is the title is reimagined. Even guys who stay on books for a long amount of time, Bendis and Jeff Johns and people like that, they still have left titles, and those titles have then gone on. People never thought that you could top Frank Miller's run on Daredevil, and then people thought that you could never top Bendis's run on Daredevil, and then, lo and behold, here's Mark Waid doing Daredevil. It is the nature of the cyclical business of sequential storytelling that, you're always going to have a new vision along the way, and it's not ever done for, evil purposes. I think some people sort of tend to look at it, and every show that gets canceled, and I'm now talking more in live action. Every show that gets canceled has a very, very loyal fan base that's absolutely shocked that it's coming to an end. And I'm talking about shows that have been on 4 episodes. And people yell and scream and say it's not fair and that show should have been given a better chance. Certainly the people that made the show didn't intend for the show to go away in 4 episodes or 2 years. Or, I'm a big fan of a show on AE called Breakout Kings. It's just a cool little show. And it's on a network that has had an extraordinary string of hits, and they're closing it up after 2 seasons. And do I think that there's hundreds of more stories that can be told? Yeah, but for whatever reason, they're going to move on. So I think that the best part about where we are right now is that if you love a show, and again, I'm not discussing anything about what's currently on the air, but if you love a show, the best part about it is it's now available to you. It's either available to you on DVD or it's available to you on download. And John, when you and I grew up, and all there was one station, and it was in black and white with rabbit ears, and most of it was Milton Berle. The truth of the matter is, I'm teasing, but in any event, most of the shows, like the shows that were like super cool that you would have watched, over and over and over again, you couldn't watch them. There was no way to watch them. You couldn't watch X-Files when X-Files was on. It was on whenever it was on. That was it. Those were your choice. And now, you can watch X-Files 25 times a day.
Sure.
And I think has very much changed the nature of the way people view television, is that they can watch it when they want to watch it.
And the expectation of why isn't it continuing? Sure. I understand that. I obviously, and again, I know that you are unable to go so far, but I guess if people do hear that something might not be happening with the current Avengers show, I feel like this second season has gone up a notch. I enjoyed the first season a lot, but this melding of the Kree Skrull War and Secret Invasion and all of these different storylines, I think is,
It's a terrific show.
Yep.
It's a terrific show. I will say this, and this is not about the Avengers show. It's not about any show that we currently produce. But it is always challenging as someone who is both a creator and as someone who's involved with the creation of television shows, and that includes Smallville and Lost and Heroes and some of the other things that I've been involved with. It's always challenging when the audience can't understand why you're not continuing if the show is a hit. And that's really the place where people don't have always the same information as the people that are the decision makers. It's very rare. In fact, I think it's unheard of that if the show's a hit, that people stand around and go, well, we ought to cancel it because there's no reason for us to continue that. And I think that that's where it gets confusing. I think that
of course
people are passionate about something, and they want it on. They're like, again, Breakout Kings is a perfect example. I watched that show. I don't know why they're canceling it. I mean, are there shows like, for example, could Lost have continued beyond where it was? Sure, but Damon Lindelof, who created the show, said enough. It's time to wrap it up and go home before this turns into, Ice Station Zebra. And so I don't even know what that means, but
I do.
that's a new concept, basically. People usually didn't wrap up a show because the creative individuals said it's time to go home. And in fact, when you look at a show like 2.5 Men,
right?
That's a show where theoretically, after Charlie left, everyone could have said, well, that's it. We're going home.
Yeah. Yeah, 9 seasons is enough, or 8 seasons,
yeah,
whatever.
No, exactly. but you know what? It's a big, giant hit show.
Yep.
So how do you hope that you can make that show work? Well, they brought in Ashton Kutcher, and the show's doing well enough that they're continuing on for season 10. But believe me, there are people who think that the fact that the show continued without Charlie is a crime against humanity.
Sure.
And towards those people, I go, it's not really a crime against humanity. Here's the good news. Don't watch the show.
Right.
But I feel that way about how, as passionate as people are about comic books when they find out that there's a new team that's coming on. And
I understand.
And they immediately, they want to go down and burn down their local comic shop. Please don't burn down your local comic shop.
No, please.
We need every single one of them.
Absolutely.
But it's and also they don't have anything to do with it. So at the end of the day, it's just it always will be, the power will always be with the consumer. Always will be. And that's a very, very challenging thing sometimes that people can't always grasp, is that, if the book is selling like crazy, then guess what? There's going to be more of it. And when the book starts to not have that same ability, then guess what? It's not going to be around much longer.
Let me ask about the G4 anime shows and stuff. And I know that was a set for series.
Yes.
That was made in advance and everything. What was the response to that though? And might we see more?
I can't talk about the future. It was extremely well received, and we had a great time. The guys at Sony are terrific. But it's not. That's one of the shows that sort of predates Marvel Animation.
Marvel TV season. Yes,
Marvel TV.
Understood.
In other words, it was a deal that was put into place. Sony controls how that show is made. Obviously, we have creative input in terms of what's going on. But that kind of deal-making process is not something that we're interested in doing now. Now we like making our own shows. As
right.
Joe Quesada likes to say, Marvel Television comes right from the tap. We should be able to provide for our fan base and for the worldwide viewer, shows that we can look at and not always have like a little, asterisk next to us. We didn't really have anything to do with this. We want to be able to say, no, that's ours. This is,
Sure.
If it says Marvel on it, it should be from Marvel.
Well, it's part of that building the brand and everything. Absolutely. That it's rather than licensing it to another company, this really is all in house and it's representative of the brand.
Some of that stuff
Absolutely.
we can do something about, and some of it we can't do anything about. The X-Men movies, of which people are very divided about. I think lots of people really enjoyed First Class.
Me too.
I think other people were challenged by Wolverine. And again, but obviously there are people that love that movie. It doesn't make them right, doesn't make them wrong.
Sure.
But again, that's what's going on over at Fox. They're making movies that happen to have Marvel characters in them. We have a lot of input over there. So you either wind up with a Wolverine, or you wind up with a First Class. Or God forbid, you wind up with Daredevil. Now, in fairness, someone who's listening to this will say, I like Daredevil. And to those
I like the directors. Go ahead.
And to those people, they're not wrong. It's just in my opinion, it's not a very good movie.
I do think the director's cut is slightly better. I really do, and honestly, in a very important way.
That's great. That's sort of like so. In other words, you like Skippy better than Jeph. It's still peanut butter.
No, I just think that it leaning more on that Coolio Kingpin subplot. It explained Kingpin's motivations a bit more. And I just thought that, and you saw Matt Murdock be a lawyer. I just thought it was a bit better. I'll stand by that.
It's still a terrible costume, and that's my opinion.
It is a bad costume. I'll go with you on that. And that's I want to ask.
Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge Ben Affleck fan, and I'd watch Jennifer Garner read the full book. So you got me coming out of the gate. But wow, it's just you just look at it and you go, wow. I really wish that Kevin Feige and the people at Marvel Studios had made that movie.
I understand
that. It would be a very, very different movie.
I'm glad you brought up the costume, because I want to ask about that in general. Because even in and this is, I think, a problem that all the live action projects have to worry about. Obviously, not so much in animation, but this has been going on for really over 20 years when they've tried to do superpowered people on television. And I know in the 90s you had shows like, obviously, Buffy, Angel, the Sentinel, where you had these people that had superpowers but didn't wear costumes. We saw on The Cape, the NBC show, it failed when the guy did kind of have a costume. I mean, I also think
and there are people who think that it's a crime against humanity. The Cape's not on. That's one point.
I understand. Well, and you guys made the choice on Heroes to keep everybody plain clothes and stuff. But as you guys are developing these properties for live action TV, for example, I mean, obviously I would think that whatever defines them as the hero, the uniform was always a big part of that on paper. And it's tough.
Look at the things that we're developing. Okay. We're developing Hulk. Okay.
Uh-huh.
He's not wearing a cape.
Right.
It's not anytime soon.
Right, right.
So, is he going to be big and green and have torn purple pants? Absolutely. So that's understood. When you look at Jessica Jones, we're probably not going to spend a lot of time talking about Jewel. But when you look at particularly those first 6 issues of Alias, of which Jessica Jones is based on, you have a sense as to how that can work in television.
Definitely, absolutely. What about Mockingbird, for example?
When you look at Punisher, Punisher's got the greatest television costume ever. It's a T-shirt. It's just and a lot of guns. So, each situation has to be looked at carefully, and part of the problem is that it's twofold. One is when you're in a movie theater and it's a 2-hour experience, your ability to suspend disbelief is easier. As long as you ground it, and then if you stop and you come along and the performances are there and the writing is there. But I think people, are divided on whether or not Batman's costume works in those movies.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah, but to be perfectly honest with you, between Chris Nolan and Christian Bale and so far what's been superb writing and directing, who cares?
Sure.
On the other hand, you can look at it and go, look, it all falls apart at the end of the day when you stop and you say, okay, I get it. He's a 10-year-old boy. He sees his parents murdered. He trains until he's 25 years old, depending upon how the story's told, to basically clear Gotham City of the evil that took his parents' lives. That's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in order to do that, he's going to put on pajamas and wear something there is no equivalent to in the real world. There's the closest you can get to is that a fireman or a cop wears a uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Soldiers wear uniforms. So it's an outfit that you put on in order to delineate what it is that you do. But for the most part, walk down the street, most people are wearing the same clothes. Pair of pants, shirt. Women dresses, pair of pants, shirt, kind of thing, shoes. There's fashion, but, it's a joke I've done probably 10 times, which is, when's the last time you saw anybody wearing a cape that wasn't named Dracula? And by the way, I don't remember whether or not the real Vlad the Impaler actually wore a cape either. So it's a challenge, right? It's just a challenge to explain to somebody what a cape is. Like seriously, if you walk down the street wearing a cape, wouldn't people go, "Excuse me, do you have a blanket on? What are you doing?" I don't understand.
No, that Seinfeld episode. That Seinfeld episode with George's dad.
Exactly. It's like, and you want to then put that in a television show every single week? Now, the good news about it is that really when you stop and you look at Marvel, at its core, Marvel will always be about its characters. Mm-hmm. It's always about the person. It's about Tony Stark is a man who metaphorically does not have a heart. He doesn't think about other people around him. His heart gets damaged, and so he becomes Iron Man. Peter Parker is a geeky kid who is bullied and has no friends and is trying to sort of get through life. He gets bitten by a radioactive spider, and he becomes Spider-Man. Matt Murdock is a blind lawyer who has the ability, through radar sense, to become Daredevil. So, and this is something that Stan Lee taught us way back when, which is when you take a guy and you put him on the 50th story ledge of a building in New York City, and he's wearing a red and blue costume, and he's standing on that ledge, and you look up, you go, wow, that's interesting. But when you understand that that's 16-year-old Peter Parker who is having troubles at school and who is trying to be friends with his best friend Harry Osborn, when he then dives off that building, you're emotionally invested in what's going on in a way that's completely different than the other way around. And one of the things that makes us sort of inherently different from our distinguished competition, and I've enjoyed great success at both companies, and I really enjoy working at both companies. But, and this is, the age-old discussion, but when you think about it, Superman comes from another planet, lands here, and creates the character of Clark Kent in the classic sense. I know that story's been retconned, and even by my own work in For All Seasons, it really is the story of Clark who then becomes Superman. But it really is the story at its core of an alien who comes here and puts on a pair of glasses and walks around and says he's Clark Kent. So the truth of the matter is there is no Clark Kent. He doesn't exist. Bruce Wayne, theoretically, and if you just take the movies as the way that the stories are told, there is no Bruce Wayne. He's a caricature that Batman uses as a disguise. So, and then I don't even get me started on Wonder Woman because I don't even begin to understand. Who is Diana Prince? I don't even know if there is a Diana Prince anymore. So that you have to be invested in those people right away. But over at Marvel, almost, all the time, Steve Rogers, you're invested in the person. So coming all the way back to your question, which is how do you tell those stories on television? Well, hopefully you tell those stories so that you're invested in Bruce Banner, you're invested in Jessica Jones, you're invested in Frank Castle. And those will be the stories that we can tell, hopefully, 100 episodes of.
Very cool. Now, obviously, after we knew that the Hulk TV show was in development, but after, I think, Ruffalo's breakout performance in the film, everyone's been asking if that has been a metaphoric kick in the pants as far as development and stuff. Has it impacted? Have you suddenly taken more meetings because of the movie's success for the television show? Again, we know that it was already in development, but has this kind of kicked it into another gear of, okay, let's really start moving on this and go while the iron's hot?
Let's put it this way. The whole company is energized by the success of the film.
Okay.
But in general, again, one of the reasons why it's difficult to talk about development is because it's people only see what they see. And so if you announce that you're going to do a show about, Diamondback, then all people want to know is so what's going on with the Diamondback show? Well, it takes a long time. And I'd rather try to make the best show that we can than rush a show out there. And because things get reported as being passed on doesn't mean that those shows aren't going to happen. The truth is, we would probably be better off never discussing anything that we have in development. But because we're very loyal to our fan base, and because we'd like people to know that we're not just sitting around, we do have stories. And then there's a lot of stories that leak that we would prefer that people not talk about, but they leak. And so, again, in a lot of those cases, I don't comment on it. And part of the reason why I don't comment on them is because then that's all anybody focuses on. I'm tremendously happy for the success of, or is it because of my friend Jeff Johns, for the success of Arrow. But, they had other shows that were in development too last season, and, we'll see where that goes as well.
That's a good point. Sure. Well, and even I just talked to Mike Oming, and God, they filmed that Powers pilot last year,
yep.
And I saw Ryan when they were doing it. And everything.
I believe Powers will get on the air. It just is one of those things where, it's such a great idea. It's such a strong literary property. Brian is such an incredible talent that it'll happen. It just where and when and how, that's the part that's just it's and obviously it's very frustrating. It's a little bit like when you haven't called your mom in a while. When you finally do get to her, all you hear about is how you haven't called her. When in fact what you want to do is say, look, I've just been incredibly busy, and I wanted to be able to tell you that this is what's going on. That's kind of how things are sometimes. It just takes a long time, and you and I have talked about this before. If people knew, people spend a lot of time talking about, why is there never anything good on television? And you and I have talked about this. If they understood the process by which television gets made, they'd be astonished there's anything good on television.
Yes, we have.
And the stuff that gets through, whether it's Game of Thrones or whether it's Mad Men, those are the ones that are really the exceptions to the rule, not the rule.
Yeah, clearly, because they don't apply to form. They're not the usual shows, and that's why there's always so many police procedurals that are by the number shows that come on TV. It's a safe format that viewers feel comfortable with, and clearly networks feel comfortable with greenlighting. And if you do something off the wall like Mad Men or Game of Thrones, the fact that it does exist is incredibly impressive. No, I agree.
Well, but it's also, again, it speaks to that. Like, the number of people who watch NCIS is staggering.
Of course.
It is the most popular show on television. Okay? So at the end, and that would make Mark Harmon one of the biggest stars on television.
Yes.
But probably to the people that are listening to this podcast or radio program or whatever we're calling it this week, maybe they don't watch NCIS.
Sure.
So again, it's one of those things where you go, wow, it really is just a different world, and it doesn't make it right or wrong. What happens? The part that's really interesting is what's happening with the Avengers right now.
Yes, I was going to ask, because go on.
It has now crossed over and has now become, much like Titanic did and much like Avatar did, it's now become a movie that everyone has to see. But people that don't know anything about comic books, people that don't know anything about, people that didn't see any of the other movies, they are now going to see this movie. And now they want to go see the other movies and go, oh, look at all that. And you can't, that's the plan, but you can't possibly know that that's going to be the plan.
I understand.
It's like you and I have talked about this. The only comparison that you could sort of make it to is in the 1930s and 40s, when they first started making Dracula and Wolfman and Frankenstein over at Universal, they didn't have a plan. It wasn't as though they were going to say, hey, in one of these days, we're going to have Frankenstein meet the Wolfman. And then after that, we're going to have House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, and they're all going to be together. And then how about this? When that franchise is dying, and Abbott and Costello, who at the time were gigantic stars and their careers were failing, we're going to put them all together. And we're going to now turn it into Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein. To have sat down, and that's really where, the folks over at the studio took a tremendous gamble, which is, to put that Nick Fury piece at the very end of Iron Man 1 and talk about something called The Avengers. And 5 years later, to have the Avengers movie come out? Who does that?
Yeah.
The answer? Nobody. Because the truth is, along the way, you could stumble. I mean, I guess the only other thing that you could sort of look at it and go, I really wonder what would have happened if, like, the third Harry Potter movie, people said, not interested anymore.
Yeah, tanked enough with Harry Potter, sure.
We're not going.
Mid-story. Yeah.
Because they were looking at, 7, 8 movies?
Yeah.
That's a pretty big commitment. But, out of the box, cultural phenomenon. A beloved book, a cast that at the time people were, she doesn't look like that, he doesn't look like that. Oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. And they saw the movie and they went, this is great.
But again, I think I wonder, because I agree with what you said too about NCIS and there being a very mainstream taste that seems to cut against a lot of genres that you and I and the listeners always enjoy, watching and reading. But we are seeing some of this crossover success, and when the formula is right, I think it must be that same thing that you were saying about what you think makes Marvel characters great, in that ultimately we have to be interested in the people, and we have to care about the people, and it must be
no one sets out to make a television show that can have people watch.
Sure.
They don't set out to make movies that they don't want people to watch. I mean, obviously when you're sitting in the theater and you're 20 minutes in and you're going, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, you go, what were they thinking about? Well, what they were thinking was they hoped everyone was going to love it. And it's the same thing with television. The same amount of passion is put into a really bad television show that's put into a really good television show. It just, sometimes it works, sometimes it. And I hold that true in comics as well. Guys that write and draw comics are the most passionate people I know. They have to be. It's an extraordinary medium that has nothing but, a deadline with a gun to your head, and hopefully you're going to be able to get that book out, and you want it to look the best. And just speaking on behalf of the guys that I work in editorial, that I know that work in editorial, they're killing themselves. They're there, until the wee hours of the night, making sure that the book looks as good as it can. And they're making, 50, 60, 70 of these a month, and hoping that they work. And, again, as a reader, sometimes you read them and you go, what is this? But nobody sets out down that road. They love doing what they're doing. People who work in comics love doing what they're doing.
I want to get back to Ultimate Spider-Man before we leave it, because I've heard a few people complain that it's too jokey. I think it's funny, but I can kind of see in a different way. Like Superhero Squad to me was cute, but I knew that show wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. So I had only seen a couple of them and was like, all right, this is cute and it's fun, but obviously I'm too old, being 47, a little old for this, and that's fine. And I know that Spider-Man, I'm assuming, was clearly made for this tweener audience that Disney XD goes for, to get adults as a bonus and stuff like that. I don't know if you've heard those complaints that it's too jokey, or that people just don't, that they're not crazy about it. Like you said before, I would think that this being like the 7th or 8th iteration of Spider-Man as a cartoon series, it's fun to try something different. And again, I think it's funny. I like it.
We have an enormously talented group of people who are making a terrific show.
I would say so.
The Man of Action guys, Joe Kelly, Joe Casey, Steve Siegel, and Doug Lau, Paul Dini,
yep.
Brian Michael Bendis, Joe Quesada, over on the Marvel side, Court Lane and Harrison Wilcox. These are people that are working endlessly, tirelessly to make the best show they can. Obviously, we hope that people love the show. There are people who do, and like anything else, there's going to be people who don't. And the people who don't, it's okay. My recommendation is don't watch the show.
Fair enough. Absolutely.
And here's the sort of guarantee. If that happened, there wouldn't be any more show.
Right.
Right. But at the end of the day, that's not what's happening.
Good. Hey man, I got it.
What?
I'll let you go ahead, and then I'll say nice things.
Oh no, it's just people are really enjoying the show, and the one thing that I only know from, obviously I have much more, behind the scenes details and stuff like that, which is not really relevant right now. But what I do know is, I've been to Chicago, WonderCon, New York, where we've played the show to a live audience, talking about 500, 1,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just having the best time in the world.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest thing ever. And that's watching it with a live audience is really extraordinary, because they're caught up in the emotion of the story and they're caught up in the comedy of it. And Spider-Man always had a lot of humor to it. That's what Spidey is.
Yep.
He quips. So we're having fun. That's what I can tell you.
Yeah, it feels like
I have to say, Eric Radomski and the crew, Alex Soto, who's our supervising director. I think they do an extraordinary job. I think it really is. So far, there's still stuff to come, but I think it is the best looking animated series that Marvel's been involved with, and I am very proud of that.
The action is really, really good. I felt that way today as we're recording. It's funny, both shows were Thor-centric today, Avengers and Ultimate Spider-Man. But it was, and I don't mind spoiling because if you haven't watched, that means you're either not watching and don't care, or whatever. But you saw Thor Frog, which was fantastic. Yeah, Throg. It was it was great seeing that. I think it's got the vibe of Marvel Team Up. That's what Ultimate Spider-Man feels like to me, which to me always was more of a quippy joke book than the regular Spider-Man books anyway.
Look, there are people who I remember at the time that when Walter Simonson, who is by all intents and purposes absolutely revered in the world of Thor, you can't honestly be a Thor fan and not love what Simonson did.
Hear, hear.
But when he turned into a frog, if there had been an internet then, it would have cracked in half.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's the fun of Marvel.
Yes.
And for the folks that saw Throg running around in the show today, it was a huge goof. For people who, if you're a fan, you know exactly where it came from. If you had no idea that Thor ever was a frog, it was one of the strangest episodes you've ever seen in your life. But it was fun. And at the end of the day, very true to the Marvel story. And we'll always have one or two things like that. I think people know if they've come to our Marvel Television Presents, we did say that we were going to be doing a Spider-Man ham story that will be coming out before the end of the season. We're having fun.
That's excellent, man. Well, it reminds me, too, of Batman's Brave and Bold. I know a lot of hardcore Batman fans that just would not watch it, and I felt sorry for them because they missed a fun, entertaining Batman show. And just as Throg reminded me of the way Brave and Bold treated Aquaman. And it's the last thing I would have expected, but making Aquaman kind of a silly, pompous ass was a lot of fun. And it was a good twist on the character and stuff. Now, Throg, we knew. I don't know why. Even in reading it and stuff, I never really gave him a voice, and it was really great hearing this kind of Shakespearean voice coming from Throg. I thought that was fantastic, and it just made it more absurd, almost a Kelsey Grammer kind of haughtiness to him and everything. It was great. Very funny. Very funny. So, no, I like it. I like it a lot. I can, and I mean, again, the times that I never roll my eyes, but there are times where I'll see something and be like, yeah, all right. But then I remember, once again, probably a product for somebody about 30 years younger than me. So I really don't mind. It's okay. And I would say on balance, no, I think it's an entertaining show, and it's a really good block. And I have to give both companies credit for revitalizing weekend cartoons and making them matter to us. I mean, I guess they've always been around and stuff like that, but I don't know, man. I haven't found a need to get up early to watch it.
It's absolutely a challenge, and we are trying to get a younger audience. We are actually trying to get shows that families can watch, and some of that just has to do with the network that we're on. I mean, let's be honest, we're on Disney XD. And we're on at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning. So, when you look at that sort of thing, you need to build shows that will fit into that world and get eyeballs to come and see it. I can tell you that, the number of families, the number of kids, when I go to shows now and do signings, it really is so much fun when kids come up and talk about how much they love the show and that it's something that they can watch with their dad or with their mom. That to me is extraordinary. It really is. If we made that one little inroad, then I sort of feel like I've done my job properly.
Was it always, and I'm sure it was, but confirm for me that it was always part of the plan to rerun it at the 8 p.m. hour on both coasts and 7 p.m. in the middle of the country?
Again, that's something the network decides. I'm more than happy to have it on. They can run it whenever they want to. I just want people to always know that their destination is, if you want to see the new shows first time, it's 11 o'clock, 10 a.m. Central on Disney XD.
Very cool, man. No, that's great. And, I'm very happy that this is working well. And you are still, I mean, obviously, the live action stuff we've heard has been being developed for ABC, ABC Family, all the, the different spectrums. So that's still, it's the full complement of Disney and ABC channels that Marvel Television is developing properties for.
Absolutely. But we'll be out and around, and going other places as well. So there's lots of stuff happening. It just takes time.
Okay.
People will see things as they keep going, and I hope to have some new announcements come San Diego, and certainly if not by San Diego, by New York Comic Con, and hopefully it'll be good news.
Fantastic, man. No, as always, you go ahead if you had another comment. I always feel like I'm
I was just going to say we're kind of out of time, so. It's been great fun. I enjoy coming on and you letting me blather.
Hey, wait, we're not gonna even have a moment to talk about you and Simone and the final chapter to the.
We can only because I promised that
you gotta go.
That I would go on. Either we should come back and talk another time, or what I can tell you is what folks already know. It's starting in July. Simone's work is absolutely breathtaking. It is, as I like to say, the rest of the story. I don't think people really understood that when we completed Evolution, as it was then called, and if I knew, what I know now, I just would have called it The Death of Sabretooth, so that we could then, at some point, come back and do The Life of Sabretooth. We did leave ourselves a keyhole that we could put a key in, and it's not a reboot, it's not a dream. Nobody went through time. It actually, the story was set up when we left to finish out the rest of the story, and we're just having a great time with it. And his work is nothing short of extraordinary.
Very cool.
So,
all right, I look forward to that. All right, man. I'll by all means, I'll let you go. I as always love our conversations and appreciate your ability to kind of let people understand how it works behind the curtain, because as you say, I think there are expectations, and obviously everybody just loves what they're seeing and they want more, and they're happy that things are chugging along. So it's always good to get your perspective, sir, and a pleasure to chat.
Take good care.
There you go. A little look back at the early days of Marvel Television with Jeph Loeb. I think in the next chapter, we'll focus on the Netflix shows and their impact on the television landscape. Hey, man, we're in an embarrassment of riches when it comes to all these great shows as far as their impact on the streaming platform. It all started with Marvel's deal with Netflix and those original shows, and certainly Daredevil. We just had a great conversation with Chris Gage about writing for that first season of Daredevil. Well, now we can look back as it was happening with Jeph and talk about its impact. So that'll be fun in the days to come here on Word Balloon. Hope you enjoyed today's show, brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Subscribe to Word Balloon via Patreon, patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you greatly for the support. You can also click on the Patreon ad on the front page of wordballoon.com. But also, as always, really, really appreciate the appreciation you all show to me in your support for the show. Thank you, subscribers and the League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon also brought to you by Aftershock Comics. Great Aftershock books coming in December. Great books like Animosity from Marguerite Bennett and Donny Cates' Baby Teeth, Dark Red from Tim Seeley, Stronghold from Phil Hester and Ryan Kelly, You Are Obsolete from Matt Klickstein debuted Wednesday. Today, issue 4 came out. Just the tip of the iceberg, man. So many great graphic novels from our friends like Brian Azzarello and Paul Jenkins. Lots of great Aftershock collections would make wonderful Christmas gifts. Do yourself a favor. Go to their website. You'll find full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes out on how to order these books through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. Stick around. More great episodes to come in December. In just a couple days, we'll have a couple new episodes for you here on Word Balloon. But wanted to acknowledge the news today about Marvel Television. I'm sad, but also consider this the start of a victory lap praising my buddy Jeph Loeb and all of his efforts with Marvel Television. I hope you'll join me for the next Word Balloon. Don't forget the archive at wordballoon.com and the archive on Spreaker that's even deeper. And there might be some broken links on the Word Balloon website. Go to Spreaker and you'll find everything from September of 2006, about a year into Word Balloon, and beyond, up to date with many, many episodes of Word Balloon to enjoy. I hope you'll join me and listen to more great shows. Until next time, thanks for listening. Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2019.